curiosity has been probably one of the biggest career unlocks that I've ever had.
I build it up.
Three very different perspectives to the automotive industry. None of them can simply tell a technician, tell a service advisor, tell a service manager, or dealer what to do. They have to earn the trust required to influence what they do next. This is Kathleen, Kelli, and Kaylee on the Wrench Turners podcast, and this is season 2 of Earned Influence. Hey, Kathleen. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Kaylee. Thank you very much for coming out today. Kathleen, what is the question that you have for the rest of us today?
Well, my question relates to trust, actually. And so RepairPal is a company that was based on sort of lack of trust of automotive service and repair. And I've watched that transform over the years. Like, what do you actually need to do to gain customer trust? And what does that look like? And especially in a world where things are rapidly evolving, there's so much more information available than there ever was before. But then unfortunately, some of that information is real, some of it isn't. We've got AI dynamics, what's being presented and how and to who, what information sources can we really trust in a world where information is both cheap, plentiful, and sometimes wrong. And so how are we each approaching this trust question and how are we building trust? So I'm really interested in digging into this question with leaders that I respect because it's something I think about and that's continuing to evolve as an internal conversation inside my head for me a lot as a leader.
Spectacular question.
Yeah.
Spectacular question.
Yeah.
Kaylee, I see you chomping at the bit over there. How would you build trust?
Yeah, I feel like what I've done is focus on resources. However, there's so much information out there, but when I came to Parts Edge, when I really looked at how much was available to parts managers, there was like nothing. So that's really what I focused on was working with the leadership, the founders, and just pulling as much information, asking as many questions as I can to understand. Because like you mentioned, like I didn't come from a dealership background. I came from Subway. So, which also like the parallels between managing a Subway and a dealership is very, very similar in some ways, but also it's like sandwiches, vehicles, a lot different, but it's very similar. But, anyways, so I focus on the resources, and that's how instead of just constantly like just pushing people like, hey, let me talk to you about your parts department, it's more of like, hey, I have this great resource for you. I think this would be helpful because I know there's not a lot out there. And then really going through and starting the podcast and making sure that's a resource. And then on top of that, webinars have been so huge for us because parts managers can come and fix out anyone really, but can come and just listen to all the things that they go through their day and someone actually relating and talking to them and how can they resolve some of these issues. So that's how I feel like I've built trust. There's so many other layers to it, but that's the biggest thing that came to mind when you asked that question.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm hearing like giving value in interactions so that people are more willing to engage with you. I'm really interested in the relationship between curiosity and trust. I think curiosity goes a long way because when you know someone's really interested in you and what your day-to-day challenges are and things like that, it matters. And then having, various formats, including webinars, which I wouldn't have thought of, but that's great because it just provides a forum for people like we are now to be kind of open conversation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think from my perspective, I love how you phrase that, Kathleen. You're interested in the relationship between curiosity and trust. And I think that's an interesting question in itself because something that I've learned recently in trying to build more into what I deal with and what I do every day, whether it's through content or what I do during 9 to 5, is that trust isn't built. There's lots of ways to build trust. And Kaylee, I highlighted a few. One of the things that I've understood that from a leadership to team dynamic, if that's what we're speaking about specifically, not necessarily business, but team atmosphere, leadership to team, you don't build trust from team to leader. You're more apt to build trust as a team from a leadership standpoint by asking for help. When leaders ask for help, they build more trust than anything else that you can do. Because A, it means that the leader is allowing themselves to be vulnerable and saying, I need help to do this. Now, they might be able to do it themselves. You might be able to do it yourself. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. The point is you're allowing yourself to at least appear vulnerable to those that you lead, to give them the opportunity to say, hey, I can help them. That is huge. They're trusting me with helping them do this important thing. See how that relationship goes? That one small dynamic, if you can shift that in that specific scenario, can be epic. And I'm sure Kelly has another tidbit for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Kaylee, that's you changed my perspective on that. And then even like I think about why do I trust you? And like, yeah, like the resources that you put out before you and I ever talked or met, like it made me trust you. So I mean that definitely makes sense. And I hadn't really looked at resources as a way to do that, but it's a brilliant way to look at it. For me, I'm in a two-part here. So one, like communication with the clients, with other vendors, with leadership. For me, I've found that just being vulnerable, right? Being able to say very quickly, like not leaving someone in an email for a day or 5 hours when say like you're trying to go find an answer and then just like leaving that person or that client or that partner like, on red for a little bit. You're actually actively saying like, I don't know this right now, but I'm going to go find the answer for you, or let me go tap some other resources, or just being able to be consistent in the communication as well, and very authentic and very open. Like, no, we're not able to do this right now, but I'm going to go bring it to such and such, levels and talk about it, or being able to even say that, hey, we're never going to be able to do this. Just isn't in our lane. I think that, just having that authentic honesty about where you're at and being able to communicate that and just being quick, like also just being really quick and knowing that like someone can get an answer. I have a lot of clients and other vendor partners, they text, they call, even things that are completely unrelated to the services that we're offering, but because they feel like, at least it feels like they feel like, hey, Kelly and or her team, like they're going to go find me an answer, or they're going to at least like help me. And so it makes them trust, like it feels like me personally and the company more by, just knowing that like we're going to help, and that we're going to be honest and that we're going to be quick and we're going to be consistent with things. And, I think sometimes even like that, just removing some of the fluff, of like oh, I need to sound perfect. Like I am by no means, like I'm pretty casual in my conversations. Anyone that's ever talked to me, like I'm more of a, hey, come hug me versus shake my hand. And I feel like even in my communications with my clients and vendor partners and even leadership, like breaking down that barrier to just be authentic, just really, and I know like that word is so overused, like be authentic, but really like it's okay to not have the perfect answer. It's okay to say that you don't know something. It's okay to say that you have to go research it. Like I feel like that really just builds a layer of trust there that is overlooked, versus like, here's this perfectly crafted response with this perfectly crafted answer. And yes, we're going to do everything. And, I feel that. And to the point of even with that, when you build that, like with your leadership or your leadership is building that with you, I mean, it does make it easier for the leadership to even come back and ask for help, from you too. And it makes it easier for you to even go ask like your leadership for things. So I just think creating a little bit less of that professional boundary sometimes just gives a whole layer of trust there that can just be maneuvered in ways that sometimes you don't even expect. I don't know if that makes sense, but at least for me, that's what it feels like across the board.
It totally
Agreed.
makes sense. Because when
Yeah.
you were talking about just being honest, like, I feel it brought out, like, conversations I've had over the years with dealers. Like, I remember saying straight to dealer space, well, over the phone, where I was like, "If your parts manager isn't going to utilize this and they're going to dig holes, then I don't want you to use us and waste your money."
Right.
Like, just
Right.
flat out saying that, so it's not this
Yeah.
perfect, like, and then when I look at my presentations or my conversations, it's like they're never perfect. It's more about the questions, because every single one is, they're similar in a way of like the problem they're having, but they're so different. Like it's never the same. So you have to like
Mhm.
ask those questions, and then you can build trust by that, because then you're honest, especially if you can't completely solve all their problems. You just focus on the ones you can solve, and then, yeah, sorry. I just had to
It's
say that.
No, I
it's
love that.
interesting because we keep coming back to, and I it's interesting because I think Brooklyn Boris was actually the first person to say this bluntly and eloquently all at the same time, is you need to ask a question, shut up and listen. And I think regardless of when we're now on topic number 2, episode 2, that we're coming back to this communication piece where we're talking about asking, how do we build trust? And one of the things that both of you have said, Kaylee and Kelly have both said, is asking questions and listening. Building trust, ask questions, ask for help, and then listen, and then execute. From your perspective, Kathleen, is that what you're actively doing? Is that something you are wanting to do more of? How is it that you specifically are building trust?
Yeah, so I would say curiosity has been probably one of the biggest career unlocks that I've ever had. And I think that just because it helps you avoid traps, it keeps you in the flow of like the most information you could possibly be in. But then also it does build that trust, which is key. I'm in the relationships business. So if people don't trust me, I have nothing, right? I mean, they might really want a solution or something like that. But then, we all have solutions. There's a million and one solutions. There's solutions looking for problems, right? So why would someone choose yours? And I think they do that because they want to be in relationship with you. And so I've tried to take some of this and take it even like a level further, which is to say, we were talking before we got started here, like about, my podcast or some of the things that I'm doing on social media and how has that evolved since our acquisition from Yelp and all of those things. And I said, it really hasn't, right? I've continued to do it. And actually, I think that's an important part for me as a leader too, of building trust, is I try to be as open and as active on as many, channels as possible around who I am, what I stand for, what I believe in, what I'm working on, what I'm thinking about, how I engage my teams, so that there's a consistency through line across all of that. Like me one-on-one is the same as me in a group, is the same as me on social media, is the same everywhere. And just permeating that curiosity, that willingness to share, hopefully the generosity, which is the other side of curiosity. And part of execution too is generosity. It's you giving your time to get things done on behalf of somebody else usually. And so I hope that comes across in everything that I do. I want for it to. And the times where I find like I'm all wound up and there's something that's not quite working, it's usually because I need to think about where could I be more generous or where could I be more curious. And then I think the output of those two things is where trust comes from.
That's a bar right there. How do I get myself into a place of trust, or better place and state of being is how can I be more generous? How can, that's spectacular. I've said for 20 plus years, like, I just want to help. And, 8 years ago, I did it from a selfish standpoint. I want to help myself. And I started the business. The cool thing is, since then, I've been humbled more than times than I wish to say publicly, but I've been humbled so many times to realize I need to help others. How do I give to others? How do I live a life of purpose to help others? And the more that I do that, the more that I give, the more generous with my time, the more giving with my heart, the more giving with my experience, more giving with my perspective and my stories, and sharing my network with as many people as I possibly can, like I am very much today, the better I do personally and professionally. It's interesting. It's a crazy cliche thing to say, but the more you give, the more you get. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not expecting to get. And it's a fine line you got to walk. At the end of the day, what are you doing when you do that? You're earning trust. The more you give without expectation, the more you're earning people's trust. And as a technician, as a service manager, as a parts manager, as a person in the dealership, doesn't matter, or a person in a shop, irrespective of industry, because we're now speaking to a much larger audience, not just in automotive, but to aviation, to HD, to fleet, to power sports. It's the same thing everywhere. The more you're willing to give of yourself for those around you to win, the more you win yourself. And that, fundamentally speaking, can be summed by one word, which is trust. That's awesome. I appreciate that. Ladies, thank you very much for this question today. Folks, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode talking about how do we build trust. I appreciate that very much. I hope you like the episode today. I hope you subscribe to the channel today, and I hope you share it with somebody you think needs to hear these messages. And as always, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away.
Thank you for watching. Please share, subscribe, and tune in for the next episode.